Hi, I'm Mark Wilson, the Engineering Heretic, and today, as you can see here, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to look at boomerangs. Now, boomerangs have been around for a long, long time. In fact, our Aboriginal history goes back around about 60,000 years in Australia. I don't know how long the boomerangs go back, but it is part of an Australian thing. And oddly enough, I've been playing around with boomerangs for many, many years, and kind of developed a bit of a knack for this. And in my teenage years I used to make these, and just recently my brother made a couple of them. Here's one here. What we're going to do is we're going to make a few of these boomerangs, and you see one made there. This is, oddly enough, a right-handed boomerang. Yes, there is such thing as a right-handed left-hand boomerang, because not like right and left-handed screwdrivers, there is a very specific difference between a right and left-hand boomerang. I'm right-handed, so we're going to make right ones, but I'll explain the difference between the two of them. We're just going to get a jigsaw, and we're going to cut out the shape there. This, the shape is the one you have here. This is basically fairly symmetrical. You can see the shape of their airfoil wings, basically, and you see as these things spin, of course, that's the leading edge, that's the trailing edge, and of course, as this spins around, that's the leading edge, that's the trailing edge. But we'll talk about how to go about doing that shortly. But first of all, we're going to cut these out on a jigsaw, and we have about 9 or so here. We're in 6mm plywood, and you want to get plywood with a number of layers in it. The more layers the better, because it's the stronger the plywood. These will make a fairly light boomerang. You probably could make it out of 9mm, which would make it a bit heavier, a little bit more penetration. Sometimes I actually do better with that, but we're going to make a fairly light one here. Less chance of breaking your finger if you go and try and catch it. So we're going to cut these out now. Okay, that's one, and of course we're being pretty rough about this. We'll cut them a little bit closer to size. We'll put a few together and make a few of them, but at the moment we're just roughing out, you can see. Yeah. So what we've done here is we've roughed out 6 of them, and of course you can see them all there. There's quite a lot of material still on these things, and we've actually nailed them together. I'm actually working with my brother Peter. We've been playing around with these things from our childhood, so we're kind of doing something we've done for many years, and we're making up a bunch of them for scouts actually. So, but we've nailed about 6 together, and now we've got a bit of a belt sander here mounted upside down, and we're going to rough out, or no, finish the profile to size, making 6 together. Now, these things, nothing's terribly critical about that. If you're a couple of mil off, it doesn't really matter. It's still going to work one way or the other. So we're going to just we'll finish the outer profile, then we'll pull them apart and we'll do a few angles and stuff like that. Of course, we're doing it with a belt sander, but there's nothing stopping you from making an individual one at a time and using a wood rasp and just basically cutting out one yourself. We're making 6 in a bunch for scouts, but there's nothing stopping you from making just one of these. Rightio. Now, oddly enough, there is a left and a right boomerang. I can say here, that's a left-handed boomerang, and that's a right-handed boomerang. To work out what your normal throwing hand, in this case, I'm a right-handed person. So we need to come up with this particular shape here. This is an aerofoil. Okay, it's that small sharp radius on the top there, on the leading edge. That's the other leading edge as this spins around, and a trailing edge like an aircraft wing. Okay, but it's this angle here, this one here, we want to get right. The other one's almost just a radius. It's not that difficult to do. So what we need to do is trace around about 1/3 of the way, 2/3 of the way over. So around about there. Just a line, just by hand. It's about 2/3 of the way over. Just tracing along here about there. About 2/3 of the way over, 1/3 of the way in the other side. All the way down this wing here. And when we get to this point here, we're going to sweep this around and getting closer and closer until we basically meet that edge here. Okay? That's that one. Now, because I'm right-handed, I hold this in my right hand like that when I'm throwing that way. Therefore, everything, so I need to hold this up here. I'm going to throw this like that. It's going to curve around in a left-handed way, and that's going to be my leading edge here as it spins. I'm right-handed. The side facing you is the side you do the angles on. Of course, if I'm left-handed, I'm going to throw left-handed. I'm going to throw the opposite direction, and of course that becomes the side you work on. So hold it in your regular throwing hand. In this case here, I'm right-handed, and I'm working on this side here. Therefore, my marking out is on that side. So now, we're going to continue here. We're going to slip this around the other way. This is my leading edge here. This is my leading edge here. So now we're going to go around here, and we're going to do the same thing again, starting here, working our way about 2/3 of the way in, across here, and working our way across there. And when we get to about that point there, we're going to basically swing this around here, so that by the time we arrive here, halfway point, we're about there somewhere. Keeping going, that's probably a little bit wrong here. We'll just block this in a little bit more as we go. Swing around here until we basically arrive at that point there. So now we've got basically our layout here. So still recording? Okay, so we just black this in around here, and the other one across here like that. Right, that's our, and now what we're going to do is cut an angle down here, and it's rather easy with this plywood because you end up with multi-layers. It looks a bit like a river line or something like that, a water line sort of thing here with the, so you can see your angles as they're changing. But what we want to do is a straight angle coming from that point there to around about the last width of the plywood, about 1 millimetre, down to there. Just a straight angle going all the way to about that point there, then blending off just to a radius at that point there. And the same thing on the other edge as well. So these are the trailing edges. Now we're working on the leading edge. So on the other side, we're doing a radius, but on the same side as the other one, but on a radius, like the front of an aircraft wing. So what we're looking for here is a radius on the front. That's the leading edge there. And of course we want a slight radius. And we want to blend here from the trailing angle there and a blend around all the way to that point there. So by the time we're finished, it'll blend off. And of course the end here, we're just going to leave that straight at the end there. Just you don't want to go right to a sharp point because it'll make it too sharp and it'll just chip anyway. So the rest of it are just basically radiuses, but all on the same side as the trailing edge. So everything's on this side here. There's nothing on the other side. There's a couple of angles we need to do on the other side later on, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Rightio, that's the top surface, and we've got a few more blends to do around the corner here and stuff like that, but then we'll blend this all off and then we'll talk about a little bit of a tweak on the other side as well. Right, now we've got so you see here the radius we've got here, quite a tight blunt radius there. You see our straight faces coming out here, blending into that aerofoil, the leading edge. Looks like a leading edge here to the trailing edge, and this of course is spinning in that direction there, like an aircraft wing. That's leading edge, that's the trailing edge. Now on the other side we have to do a little bit of a propeller effect on here. There's a couple little angles here. Now just on the, you hold this in your hand, and the hand you're holding, this is the leading edge here. What we want to do is make a little angle, like a little propeller here on this one here. So about from that point there, all the way up on the one you're holding, all the way up there. We're going to put a little bit of an angle on that. And of course, on the other side here, we have the other leading edge, but this one here cuts a bit harder into the air anyway. So this one here, we make it a little bit shorter, about something about like that. And what we're going to do is just a little bit of an angle here, and it creates just a little bit more lift that you need when it comes to having these things work correctly. That's pretty good. And that's the overall shape. Now, of course, we're using a belt sander. There is nothing stopping you from making this completely with a wood rasp. and basically using sandpaper. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And just one other point, we were actually using on the jigsaw, we're actually using a hacksaw blade rather than a wood cutting blade. They tend to chip a lot less when you're doing it. Okay, and that's the overall shape. Of course, we're going to give this a coat of varnish. These particular boomerangs here, we're going to give them a coat of varnish and make them look rather pretty. And then we're going to chuck them. We're going to chuck them. Okay, so there's the finished product. We're just going to give it a kind of a bit of a clear lacquer thing over the top of it. But that's the shape. I've dressed it up a little bit by hand with sandpaper. Of course, we've made this thing out of plywood. The original Aboriginals would have found a bent limb of a tree and hacked it out of, I've seen them do it with axes and things like that, quite rough. And of course they didn't have anything like plywood, but I think they use plywood these days. And of course they didn't have anything like this clear lacquer. I think they just used a wax or something like that, maybe even possum fat or even kangaroo fat, if there is such thing as kangaroo fat. And we're just going to give that a spray, and then this is done, and we're going to take it out in the park and chuck it. And there we have the finished article. And I'm Mark Wilson, and thanks for watching.